Returning to Cherry Creek. Part 1, The Journey Home. The train rocked rhythmically, its wheels humming softly against the tracks as Olivia Harper pressed her forehead to the cool glass of the window. Outside, the Michigan countryside slipped past in a soothing blur of lush green fields, towering pines, and scattered patches of wildflowers. It had been nearly 10 years since she left Cherry Creek, the small, quiet town where she had spent her childhood. A place she once vowed she'd never return to. But now, after her father's sudden passing, the invisible threads of family and memory had pulled her back, binding her to the past she thought she had escaped. Her fingers tightened around the folded letter from the family attorney, the paper worn at the creases. A soft sigh escaped her lips. "I never thought I'd see this place again," she murmured, voice almost lost in the gentle clatter of the train. The train slowed as it neared the quaint station, its wooden platform weathered but familiar. As the landscape slipped into sharper focus, Olivia's mind flooded with memories: the cool rush of the creek where she and Ethan had waded barefoot in summer, the shimmering glow of fireflies on warm evenings, the earthy scent of pine needles after a rainstorm. And then, inevitably, Ethan Caldwell, the boy next door, her first shy crush with those warm brown eyes and a crooked, mischievous smile. He who used to steal shy glances during Sunday service, always just out of reach. She shook her head to clear the nostalgia. Surely, he had moved on. Probably married by now, maybe with children of his own. Life in Cherry Creek didn't wait for runaway girls to return. When the train came to a stop, Olivia stepped onto the platform, breathing in deeply. The air was thick with the sweet scent of fresh-cut grass and wildflowers, a comforting yet aching reminder of home. Suddenly, a familiar voice cut through the quiet. "Olivia? Olivia Harper?" She turned quickly, heart racing, and there he was, Ethan Caldwell. Taller, broader, his hair a touch darker with the years, but those same gentle eyes that had haunted her dreams. His smile was warm and easy, hands tucked casually into the pockets of his worn flannel jacket. "Ethan," she whispered, breath catching. I didn't expect to see you here." He chuckled softly, the sound like a bomb. "Your dad was my friend too. Thought I'd offer you a ride to the house. Unless you prefer walking like the old days?" A smile tugged at the corners of her lips, tension slipping from her shoulders. "A ride sounds nice. Thanks." As they walked toward his dusty blue pickup truck, the unspoken past whispered between them, fragile but alive. Underscore 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 part 2, The Family House. The old Caldwell truck rumbled steadily down the familiar gravel road that wound its way through towering oak trees, their branches arching overhead like silent sentinels. Olivia stared out the window, memories flickering in her mind like an old film reel: sun-dappled afternoons spent chasing butterflies, the scrape of tree bark beneath her fingertips, the quiet laughter shared with her father in this very house. "Looks just the same," she murmured, voice barely above a whisper. Ethan glanced over, eyes soft. "Your dad kept it in good shape. Said he was waiting for you to come home one day." Her throat tightened as the words settled over her like a gentle weight. "I never thought I'd come back like this." He said nothing, but his steady presence beside her was a quiet comfort. When they arrived, Ethan helped her haul her bags up the creaking wooden steps onto the porch. The house smelled of cedar wood, aged books, and faintly of lavender from the garden out back. An aroma that wrapped around her like a warm embrace. "If you need anything, I'm just down the road," Ethan said softly, pausing at the door. "You're not alone here, Olivia." Their eyes met, and for a moment the weight of old feelings hung in the space between them, both tender and bittersweet. "Thank you, Ethan." "Really," she said, her voice thick with gratitude. He gave her a gentle smile, then stepped back into the golden afternoon light, leaving her to face the quiet echoes of home alone. Underscore 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 part 3, Echoes of the Past. That evening, the house seemed to sigh beneath the soft twilight, shadows stretching long across the worn floorboards. Olivia wandered through the rooms, her fingertips tracing the familiar curves of the furniture, the polished wood of the dining table, the faded embroidery of the throw pillows, the chipped porcelain vase on the mantel. Old photographs lined the walls, sepia-toned faces frozen in time, their smiles both welcoming and distant. She paused at her father's study door, which creaked softly as she pushed it open. Inside, the shelves were lined with his favorite books, their spines worn but well-loved. His leather armchair sat quietly beside the window, where the last golden rays of daylight slipped through delicate lace curtains. A soft knock startled her from her reverie. "Hey," Ethan's voice floated through the doorway, warm and tentative. "I brought dinner. Figured you might not feel like cooking." She opened the door wider, surprised but relieved. "You didn't have to." He shrugged, a shy smile tugging at his lips. "It just felt right. Chicken pot pie. Your favorite, right?" A smile curved her lips despite the sadness tugging at her heart. "Still is." They settled on the porch, the sky ablaze with shades of lavender and gold as crickets began their nightly serenade. The scent of honeysuckle drifted softly in the breeze. "So," Ethan said after a pause, breaking the comfortable silence, "how's life in Chicago? Still working at that art gallery?" "I was," she sighed, eyes distant. "Until they downsized last month. Guess I'm between things now." He nodded thoughtfully. "Funny how life circles back. Like maybe it's trying to tell you something. Like maybe it wants you here for a reason." Her gaze met his, tentative but curious. "Maybe." In the fading light, old feelings stirred quietly, like embers glowing faintly in the dusk, waiting to catch flame again. Part 4, A Walk by the Creek. The next morning dawned crisp and clear, with a pale blue sky stretching endlessly overhead. Olivia stood by the window of her childhood bedroom, watching wisps of mist rise slowly from the wide fields beyond the trees. The air was cool and smelled of earth and dew, a scent that felt like a soft memory brushing against her skin. She wrapped her arms around herself, trying to steady the flutter of nervous excitement and quiet hope that had settled inside her overnight. A gentle knock at the front door pulled her from her thoughts. "Morning," Ethan called softly, stepping inside with a warm smile. He held out 2 paper cups of steaming coffee, the rich aroma filling the room. "Figured you might want to take a walk." "Like old times." Olivia laughed, taking a grateful sip. "You remember that, huh? How could I forget? You always beat me at skipping rocks. Better than any of the boys, I swear." They stepped outside together, the crunch of their boots on the gravel road sounding comforting and familiar. The path led down through the tall grasses and wildflowers to Cherry Creek, where the water sparkled under the morning sun just as she remembered from childhood. The gentle rush of the creek was soothing, like a secret song the earth sang only to them. "You ever think about staying here?" Ethan asked quietly as they walked, his gaze steady on the water. Olivia exhaled slowly, staring at the ripples dancing over smooth stones. "Sometimes. But when I left for Chicago, it felt like the future was there, big, bright, and full of possibility." This place, it felt too small. He glanced over at her with a softness that made her heart ache. Does it still? She hesitated, unsure of the answer. I don't know yet. They found a fallen log and sat side by side, sipping their coffee in comfortable silence. The scent of pine mingled with the fresh notes of wild mint growing near the creek's edge. A brilliant bluebird flitted past them, its song bright and clear. I used to think about you a lot, Ethan admitted, voice low. Wondered if you'd ever come back. Her heart skipped a beat. I thought about you too. Their eyes met, and in that quiet moment, something unspoken sparked between them, a fragile hope that maybe, just maybe, some things never really change. Underscore 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 part 5. The funeral. The morning of the funeral was wrapped in soft gray clouds that drifted slowly across the sky, casting a muted light over Cherry Creek. Olivia stood outside the old church perched on the hill, dressed simply in black with her hair pinned loosely at the nape of her neck. The air was heavy with the scent of damp earth and fallen leaves, as neighbors and old friends gathered quietly, their voices low with condolences and shared grief. Ethan was beside her, a steady presence in the sea of faces. His hand brushed hers briefly, a silent reassurance. The church bells tolled gently as the service began, their mournful peals echoing across the quiet town. Inside, the minister spoke of kindness and legacy, weaving stories of her father's generosity and gentle spirit. Olivia felt the weight of absence settle deep inside her chest, the years that had slipped away, the words left unspoken between them. Tears pricked at the corners of her eyes, blurring the faces before her. When the service ended, the crowd moved outside, the cool breeze stirring the grass around the freshly turned earth. At the graveside, Ethan's hand found hers again, his touch grounding her amid the swirling emotions. He was proud of you, Olivia, Ethan whispered, voice thick with feeling. Every time I saw him, that's what he said. She swallowed hard, holding back a sob. I hope so. I really do. They stood side by side, the wind weaving softly through the trees, carrying with it the quiet weaving of past and present, an unspoken promise that the story wasn't over yet. Part 6. The reading of the will. A gentle rain had passed through Cherry Creek the day before, leaving the air fresh and cool with the faint scent of damp earth and blossoming lilacs. Olivia sat quietly in the dim, dusty office of Mr. Alden, the family attorney. The room was lined with tall bookshelves sagging under the weight of legal tomes and faded folders. The heavy wooden desk, scarred by years of use, held a neat stack of papers and an antique brass lamp casting a soft yellow glow. Mr. Alden, a kindly elderly man with silver spectacles perched low on his nose, shuffled the papers with deliberate care and cleared his throat. Ethan sat beside Olivia, his steady presence a silent reassurance in the unfamiliar room. Thank you for coming, Olivia, Mr. Alden began gently. Your father left specific instructions for the reading of his will. He wished it to be done here, privately. Olivia nodded, twisting the hem of her sweater nervously, the faint sound of rain tapping against the windowpane. I'm ready. Mr. Alden adjusted his glasses and began to read aloud with a measured tone. To my beloved daughter, Olivia Harper, I leave to you the family home, the surrounding land, and all contents therein. This house was built with love and care, and I trust you will decide its future wisely. Her throat tightened, and a flood of memories crashed over her, laughter echoing in sunlit rooms, whispered secrets shared by the cherry trees outside, the gentle touch of her father's hand. The house, hers now. Mr. Alden continued, his voice steady but kind. Additionally, I leave to you the contents of the locked chest in my study. You will find the key taped beneath the bottom drawer of my desk. Curiosity flickered in Olivia's eyes as she glanced at Ethan. The attorney went on, to Ethan Caldwell, I leave the old red canoe and fishing gear in the barn. Thank you, Ethan, for being the son I never had. Ethan blinked in surprise, sitting a little straighter. I didn't expect that. Mr. Alden smiled warmly. Your father thought very highly of you, Ethan. The lawyer neatly folded the papers and looked at Olivia kindly. That concludes the formal reading. I suggest you see what's inside that chest. It may help you understand your father's wishes. Outside, stepping into the fresh afternoon, Ethan nudged her gently. Want me to come with you? She smiled softly, the weight on her chest lightening just a bit. I'd like that. Underscore 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 part 7, The Secret Chest. Back at the house, the golden light of late afternoon filtered softly through the curtains as Olivia knelt in her father's study. The room smelled of cedar and old paper, the quiet ticking of the grandfather clock marking time steadily. With careful fingers, she pulled out the bottom drawer of the heavy oak desk and felt beneath it. There, taped firmly, was a small, tarnished brass key, cold and smooth against her skin. Here goes, she whispered, heart fluttering with anticipation. In the far corner of the room sat an old wooden chest, its surface scratched but sturdy. Olivia slid the key into the lock, hearing a soft click as the lid creaked open. Inside lay bundles of letters tied with faded blue ribbon, journals with cracked leather covers, and photographs she had never seen before. Pictures of her parents young and laughing, a picnic by the creek under the cherry trees, a tiny baby cradled tenderly in her mother's arms. Ethan knelt beside her, picking up one of the letters gently. These are addressed to you, he murmured. She unfolded the delicate paper carefully, reading her father's familiar handwriting. My dearest Olivia, if you're reading this, it means I am no longer with you. There are so many things I never said. I regret not telling you every day how proud I was of you. Tears blurred the words as she read, the love in his voice wrapped around her like a warm shawl. Each letter told stories of her childhood, her parents' hopes and dreams, and the future they imagined for her. At the bottom of the chest lay a small velvet box. Olivia opened it slowly, revealing a delicate silver locket. Your mother's, Ethan said softly. Inside the locket were 2 tiny photographs, her mother and father, forever young, forever together. He wanted you to have all of this, Ethan said gently. To remember where you come from. Olivia held the locket close to her heart, a tear slipping quietly down her cheek. I do. I remember everything now. Part 8, A Gentle Evening. The sun dipped low in the sky, casting a warm golden glow across the fields as Olivia stepped out onto the porch. The locket lay heavy and comforting against her skin. Ethan waited nearby, leaning casually against the railing with a quiet smile lighting his face. How are you holding up? He asked softly, handing her a steaming cup of tea that smelled faintly of chamomile and honey. She accepted it gratefully, wrapping her hands around the warm cup. Better. It feels like I've been given a part of them I never knew. Those letters, they were everything. He nodded slowly, his gaze lingering on her face with an intensity that made her breath catch. Your dad knew you'd come back when the time was right. He always said you'd find your way home. They stood quietly, watching fireflies flicker to life in the dusk, the soft hum of crickets rising all around them. I used to dream about this porch, Olivia murmured, voice barely above the breeze. Sitting here, with someone who really knew me. Not the city version, the real me. Ethan's hand brushed hers gently, sending warmth blooming through her veins. I always hoped you'd come back. You were the first girl I ever loved, you know. Her breath caught, heart fluttering with a sweetness she hadn't felt in years. Ethan. He laughed softly. You'd run off with your sketchbook, sitting by the creek for hours. I wanted to sit beside you so badly, but I was too scared. She smiled, the sound bright and light in the evening air. I wanted you to. I waited for you to say something. He stepped closer, voice low and tender. I'm saying it now. I've never stopped caring for you, Olivia. Not once. Her eyes lifted to his, shimmering in the fading light. I think I've been waiting to hear that. He reached out, cupping her cheek with gentle fingers, thumb brushing her skin softly. Can I kiss you? Her heart swelled as years of distance melted away. Yes. Their lips met gently, sweetly, like the first raindrop after a drought, soft and promising. The kiss deepened slowly, filled with hope and quiet joy. When they parted, Olivia smiled, her fingers brushing along his jaw. Feels like coming home. Ethan rested his forehead against hers, voice warm and sincere. Stay, Olivia. Just for a little while. Let's see where this goes. She nodded, her heart finally at peace. I think I will. Part 9. Fixing up the house. Morning light spilled gently through the kitchen window, casting a warm glow across the worn wooden floorboards and the chipped porcelain sink. Olivia stood at the counter, sleeves rolled up to her elbows, stirring pancake batter with a quiet hum, a tune she used to sing as a child in this very kitchen. The scent of vanilla and cinnamon filled the air, mingling with the faint aroma of freshly brewed coffee. Outside, the soft creak of the porch swing announced Ethan's presence. He stepped into the kitchen, wiping his hands on a rag, his flannel shirt slightly dusted with sawdust. Morning, city girl, he teased with a playful grin. Ready for a hard day's work? Olivia laughed, flipping a golden pancake with practiced ease. I'll have you know I'm handy with a hammer. And I make a mean pancake, too. Ethan smirked, stealing a bite from the stack. A woman of many talents. Let's make today count. After breakfast, they stepped outside into the crisp air, the sun casting long shadows on the old farmhouse. The porch railing sagged, loose and weathered, the wooden shutters hung crooked on their hinges, and the garden was wild with lavender, mint, and tall grasses that had taken over. What's first? Olivia asked, tying her hair up with a soft ribbon. Porch railings, Ethan declared, tapping the wood with his hammer. Then the shutters. You can tackle the garden later. Deal, she agreed, determination sparking in her eyes. Together, they worked through the morning. Olivia held board steady while Ethan hammered nails, his strong arms moving with easy rhythm. The warm sunlight pooled around them, dust motes swirling in the golden air. She caught herself stealing glances at him, the way his shirt clung to his shoulders, the smile that tugged at his lips whenever their hands brushed. You sure you don't want to switch? Ethan teased, catching her eye. I hammer, you admire? No way, she laughed, grabbing the cordless drill from his belt. I can handle this. Their fingers brushed as she took the tool, sending a small jolt of warmth between them. By midday, sweat glistened on their foreheads and laughter echoed across the yard as Ethan playfully feigned defeat, clutching his chest. You've bested me in home repairs. I surrender. Good, Olivia grinned. Now help me with these shutters. Later, as Olivia knelt in the garden pulling weeds and trimming wild mint, Ethan sat on the porch steps, watching her with a soft smile. You belong here, he said quietly. She looked up, brushing a strand of hair from her face. I'm starting to think you're right. As the sun dipped low and fireflies began to flicker, They stood side by side admiring the repaired porch and the tamed garden. The house seemed to breathe again, warmed by their care. Ethan slipped his hand into hers. "We make a good team, Harper." She leaned her head on his shoulder, the simple truth settling warmly in her heart. "The best." Part 10, An Unexpected Rainstorm. The morning dawned bright and warm, the fresh scent of cut grass and pine hanging thick in the air. Olivia and Ethan had planned to tackle the barn roof, a task her father had left unfinished for years. They hauled ladders, shingles, and tools across the yard, laughing at the creaking complaints of the weathered wood. "Think this barn's older than both of us combined," Ethan joked, steadying the ladder as Olivia climbed carefully. "Probably," she grinned, adjusting her tool belt. "But we're going to make it look new again." Side by side, they worked under the soft sun, hammering, prying loose boards, replacing shingles. A light breeze ruffled their hair and carried the distant call of a red-tailed hawk. But as the afternoon wore on, dark clouds gathered swiftly on the horizon, swallowing the blue sky in a gathering storm. "Looks like rain," Ethan said, glancing warily toward the hills. "We've got time," Olivia said hopefully. "Just a few more boards." The wind tugged at their shirts and whipped leaves around their feet. Suddenly, a low rumble of thunder rolled over the fields. "We should get down," Ethan urged, offering his hand. Just as Olivia stepped onto the ladder, fat drops of rain splattered cold and sudden. They hurried down, laughing as the sky opened, unleashing a summer downpour that drenched them in moments. "Quick, the barn!" Ethan grabbed her hand, pulling her inside just as the rain became a relentless drumming on the old roof. Inside, the scent of hay and wood filled the dim space. Olivia pushed wet hair from her face, breathless and laughing. "Well, so much for finishing the roof today," she smiled. Ethan chuckled, peeling off his soaked flannel. "Guess the storm had other plans." They stood close in the shadows, their damp clothes clinging to their skin, the air thick with the fresh scent of rain and earth. Ethan reached up gently, tucking a wet strand of hair behind her ear. "You look beautiful like this," he murmured. "Like you belong in this old barn, with the rain all around." Her heart fluttered despite the chill. "You always did have a way with words, Caldwell." He smiled softly. "Maybe because they're true." For a long moment, they stood in silence, listening to the steady rhythm of raindrops above. Then Olivia stepped closer, her hand finding his. "Maybe the storm's not so bad," she whispered. Their eyes locked, and he bent down slowly, kissing her with quiet sweetness, the scent of rain mingling with the warmth of his lips. The world outside faded away, leaving only the warmth between them. When they pulled apart, Olivia rested her forehead against his chest, smiling. "Definitely not so bad," she murmured. The storm raged on, but inside that old barn, everything felt safe, right, and full of promise. Part 11, A Cozy Evening by the Fireplace. After the storm passed and the air cleared, a fresh scent of rain lingered softly outside. Olivia and Ethan settled before the crackling fireplace in her father's living room, the golden flames dancing and casting warm shadows on the walls lined with family photos and well-loved books. Olivia curled her legs beneath her on the worn couch, cradling a steaming mug of chamomile tea between her hands. Ethan sat close beside her, their shoulders just barely touching. "You know," she said softly, gazing into the flickering flames, "I used to imagine nights like this. Sitting here. With someone who felt like home." Ethan smiled, his eyes tender and full of quiet affection. "Funny, I used to imagine the same thing. Except you were always beside me." A comfortable silence settled between them, the kind that spoke of understanding without words. Olivia rested her head on his shoulder, feeling the steady beat of his heart beneath her ear. "This place feels different now," she murmured. "Not a burden anymore." Like maybe, it could be a new beginning. His hand gently covered hers, warmth radiating through the touch. Stay, Olivia. Give this a chance. Give us a chance. Her heart swelled with hope and something tender she hadn't allowed herself in years. I want to. I really do. Outside, the wind whispered softly through the cherry trees, but inside the old house, everything felt still and safe, wrapped in the glow of the fire and the promise of tomorrow. Part 12, A Walk to the Lake. The morning sun spilled warmly across the sky, painting it a brilliant blue without a single cloud in sight. Ethan surprised Olivia with a picnic basket filled with sandwiches wrapped in parchment paper, crisp apples, and a small jar of homemade strawberry jam. "Picnic by the lake?" he asked, grinning as he handed her the basket. Olivia's smile was bright, reminiscent of summers past. "Like when we were kids." She slipped on her sandals, the soft straps brushing against her skin as she stepped out into the fresh morning air. They took the familiar winding path through the woods, sunlight filtering through the tall pines and cherry trees, casting dappled shadows on the forest floor. Birds chirped overhead, and the scent of wildflowers and pine needles filled the air, a balm to Olivia's restless heart. With every step, she felt lighter, as if the weight of the past was slowly lifting. The crunch of leaves and twigs beneath their feet was a comforting soundtrack to their walk. At the lake, the water shimmered in the sunlight, gentle waves lapping softly against the shore. They spread a blanket on the soft grass beneath the shade of a large cherry tree, its blossoms casting delicate pink shadows across the ground. "I missed this place," Olivia confessed as she lay back and gazed up at the sky, the clouds drifting lazily like dreams she thought she'd forgotten. "It missed you too," Ethan said quietly, watching her with a tenderness that made her heart flutter. "We all did." They ate, laughed, and shared stories of their separate lives, the bustling streets of Chicago, the quiet rhythms of small-town days, the fears that held them back and the hopes that pushed them forward. As the sun began to lower, painting the horizon in soft gold and rose hues, Ethan propped himself on one elbow, his gaze steady on Olivia. "I never stopped caring about you," he said simply, voice thick with feeling. "I don't think I ever could." Her breath caught, a warmth blooming in her chest. "I think. I've been waiting to hear that." He leaned down, kissing her softly, the gentle lake breeze playing with their hair as time seemed to stretch and pause, a perfect moment suspended between past and future. Part 13, An Unexpected Visitor. A few days later, as Olivia tended to the blossoming garden behind the house, a car rolled slowly up the gravel driveway. She paused, wiping her hands on her apron, and looked up to see a familiar figure stepping out. "Lila?" Olivia gasped, her heart skipping as she recognized her childhood best friend, her smile as bright as ever. "Surprise." Lila laughed, closing the distance to pull Olivia into a warm embrace. "I heard you were back and just had to come see for myself." They hugged tightly, memories rushing through their minds like a summer breeze, long talks under the cherry trees, secrets shared beneath starlit skies, the innocence of youth that had bound them together. Lila's eyes twinkled as she glanced at Ethan, who had joined them on the porch with a wave. "You too, huh?" "About time," she teased with a knowing grin. Olivia blushed, glancing toward Ethan. "It's complicated. But maybe not so complicated anymore." Lila stayed for tea, filling the house with laughter and stories that wove the past and present into a warm tapestry of friendship. Her presence was like a bright light, helping Olivia see the threads that connected her life in ways she hadn't realized. When Lila left later that afternoon, Olivia felt a new warmth in her chest, a feeling that the past and present were finally coming together, ready to create something beautiful. Part 14, The Town Fair. The annual Cherry Creek Summer Fair arrived like a burst of color and sound, transforming the quiet town with music, laughter, and twinkling lights strung between the old oak trees. Ethan convinced Olivia to come with him, just like they had when they were kids, when life was simpler and the world seemed full of endless possibility. Hand in hand, they wandered through the rows of booths selling handmade crafts, fragrant baked goods, and fresh lemonade. Children darted by with cotton candy sticky on their fingers, while the carousel spun slowly, its painted horses glowing softly under strings of fairy lights. "Want to ride?" Ethan asked, nodding toward the towering Ferris wheel. Olivia grinned, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "Only if you promise not to rock the seat." At the top, the town stretched beneath them, bathed in the warm glow of the setting sun. The fields, the cherry orchards, and the familiar rooftops all seemed to shimmer with a golden light. Ethan took her hand, squeezing it gently. "You fit here," he said softly. "Like you never left." She smiled, leaning against him as the Ferris wheel carried them slowly back down to earth. The moment was quiet and perfect, like the gentle unfolding of a new chapter written beneath the cherry trees. Part 15, A Confession Under the Stars. That night, after the soft glow of the farmhouse lights had dimmed, Ethan and Olivia found themselves outside beneath the vast, inky sky. The stars glittered overhead like scattered diamonds, casting a gentle silver light over the quiet fields. The air was cool and fresh, carrying the faint scent of cherry blossoms from the trees that bordered the property, their delicate petals whispering in the night breeze. They settled on an old wooden bench near the garden, side by side but not quite touching, the silence between them full of unspoken thoughts. Finally, Ethan broke it, his voice low and sincere. "Can I tell you something?" he asked, eyes fixed on the horizon where the last glow of the sunset faded. "Of course," Olivia replied, her heart quickening. Ethan took a deep breath. "I almost left Cherry Creek once. Not long after you did. I thought there was nothing left for me here. No future, no dreams, just the same small town and the same quiet days. But something kept me here. Something told me to stay. I think I was waiting for you." Her eyes shimmered with tears, reflecting the starlight. She reached out, her hand brushing his, fingers entwining gently. "I ran because I was scared," she whispered, voice trembling. "Scared of staying, scared of feeling stuck. But maybe I was running from what I really wanted, what was always right in front of me." He turned toward her, his eyes filled with tenderness and hope. "It's not too late," he said softly. She squeezed his fingers, a warm hope blooming like the cherry blossoms in spring. "No," she said firmly. "It's not." Together, beneath the vast tapestry of stars, they let the past fall away, opening their hearts to a future unwritten, but full of promise. Part 16, Letters from the Past. The following morning dawned soft and bright, sunlight spilling into the study where Olivia sat surrounded by stacks of her father's letters. She pored over the delicate pages, the ink faded but the words alive with emotion. Each letter was a window into her father's hopes and dreams, his quiet prayers for her happiness and fulfillment. One letter, in particular, caught her breath. It was dated just a year before his passing. "If you find someone who makes you feel safe, who makes you laugh, don't let fear steal that away. Fight for it. Stay." Tears welled up in her eyes as she traced the words with trembling fingers. She knew, deep in her heart, exactly who he meant. "Ethan," she whispered, voice thick with emotion. Later that afternoon, she found Ethan working near the barn, his hands steady as he repaired a broken gate, his movements familiar and sure. "I read another letter," she said softly, approaching him with a tentative smile. I think he knew all along. About us. About what this place could mean for both of us." Ethan paused, looking up at her, eyes warm and steady. He stepped forward, pulling her gently into his arms. Then let's make him proud, he said with quiet determination. Together. The weight of the past lifted, replaced by a shared resolve. They stood side by side, ready to face whatever the future might bring. Part 17, A New Beginning. Days slipped into weeks, and the rhythm of life in Cherry Creek settled around Olivia like a comforting embrace. She found joy in the simple things, tending to the garden bursting with wildflowers and herbs, repainting the porch with its faded green shutters, and sharing quiet meals with Ethan, their laughter mingling with the soft evening breeze. One morning, as sunlight filtered through the branches of the cherry tree in the yard, Olivia turned to Ethan with a hopeful smile. "I've been thinking," she began, brushing a stray curl from her face. "I want to reopen the old bookshop in town, the one I used to visit as a kid. It feels like a fresh start." Ethan's eyes lit up immediately. "I'll help you," he said without hesitation, his voice filled with conviction. "Every step of the way." They shared a lingering kiss beneath the cherry tree's delicate canopy, the sun casting playful shadows on their faces. The world felt wide open, full of possibility and new beginnings, as if the very earth itself was rooting for them. In that moment, with the soft rustle of cherry blossoms around them, Olivia realized that this was exactly where she was meant to be, home, at last, with the person she had never stopped loving. Part 18, The First Steps. The old bookshop on Main Street smelled of dust and forgotten stories, a quiet, musty scent that somehow felt like a promise. Its wooden shelves sagged under the weight of countless novels, the faded gold lettering on the front door worn by years of sun and rain. Together, Olivia and Ethan stepped inside, the creak of the floorboards echoing in the empty space. With sleeves rolled up and determination in their eyes, they began the slow transformation. They swept away decades of dust, the sunlight streaming through the cracked windows catching motes of floating powder. Olivia carefully wiped down shelves while Ethan scrubbed the scuffed wooden floor. Their laughter filled the quiet corners, weaving warmth into the silence. "This place has so much charm," Ethan said, stacking a pile of books with a careful hand. "Like Cherry Creek itself." Olivia smiled, her fingers tracing the carved wood of an old counter. "It's like waking up a sleeping giant." They uncovered forgotten trinkets and faded photographs tucked between the pages of books, a reminder of lives lived and stories told beneath this roof. As the shop slowly began to shed its years of neglect, so too did Olivia feel her heart opening, letting in light and hope, love and belonging. With each new coat of paint, each repaired shelf, she felt the bookshop, and herself, blooming. This was more than a business. It was a bridge back to her roots, a doorway to a future she was finally ready to embrace. Ethan caught her hand in his, their fingers entwining naturally. "We're making something beautiful here. Just like us." She squeezed his hand back, smiling through the quiet joy settling deep inside. Part 19, A Proposal Under the Cherry. One quiet evening, when the sun had slipped behind the hills and fireflies flickered softly through the air, Ethan led Olivia beneath the old cherry tree by the creek, their childhood sanctuary. The branches stretched wide, leaves whispering in the gentle breeze, petals drifting like soft pink snowflakes around them. "This tree has seen it all," Ethan murmured, voice low with emotion. "Our childhood, our secrets, and now this." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box, opening it to reveal a delicate ring that caught the fading light. "Olivia Harper," he said, dropping to one knee, "will you stay? Will you build this life with me?" Tears sparkled in her eyes, reflecting the glow of fireflies as she smiled through trembling lips. "Yes, Ethan. Yes." He slipped the ring onto her finger, and they embraced beneath the cherry tree, the creek's gentle murmur surrounding them like a blessing. The leaves swayed above in a soft dance, as if nature itself was celebrating the promise they had made, one of love, of home, and of forever. In that tender moment, the years of distance and doubt melted away, replaced by a steady, endless promise beneath the branches where it all began. Part 20. Home at last. The wedding was small and perfect, intimate and full of heart. Family and friends gathered beneath the sprawling cherry tree in the meadow near the farmhouse. The air was warm with laughter and the scent of fresh bread and wildflowers. Lila stood beside Olivia, beaming with pride and happiness, as she vowed her heart to Ethan beneath the blossoms. The old farmhouse seemed to glow with a new kind of warmth that day, alive with light and love. The bookshop, freshly painted and brimming with new books, was ready to open its doors once more, promising new stories and new beginnings for the town. Olivia stood on the porch one quiet morning, the rising sun casting golden light over the fields, Ethan's arms wrapped gently around her waist. She breathed in the scent of cherry blossoms carried on the breeze and whispered, "Home." He kissed her cheek softly. At last. And as the seasons turned, their love grew steady and strong, rooted deep in the soil of Cherry Creek, blossoming with gentle, endless promise, just like the cherry tree beneath which their story began. Part 21. The first morning together. Sunlight spilled softly into the bedroom, casting warm golden rays across the wooden floors. Olivia stirred beneath the cozy quilt, blinking awake to the scent of fresh coffee drifting in from the kitchen. Ethan stood in the doorway, a tray balanced in his hands, 2 steaming mugs and a plate piled high with warm, buttery muffins. "Thought I'd let the new Mrs. Caldwell sleep in," he teased, setting the tray carefully on the nightstand. Olivia smiled sleepily, stretching as she sat up. "This is the life," she murmured. "First day of married life," Ethan said with a chuckle, sitting beside her. "So far, so good. No regrets?" "None," she replied, leaning in for a soft kiss. "You?" "Best decision I ever made." They sipped their coffee in companionable silence, basking in the warm glow of a new chapter, one built on love, hope, and the quiet certainty of home. Part 22. Cooking Catastrophe. Later that week, Olivia decided to surprise Ethan with a homemade dinner. She was determined to recreate the lasagna recipe her mother had passed down, comfort food that tasted like home and love. The kitchen was alive with the sounds of sizzling sauce, bubbling cheese, and the rhythmic chopping of garlic and herbs. Olivia hummed an old tune, the smell of basil and oregano filling the air. She flourished in the warmth of the kitchen, flour dusting her nose and smudging her cheeks, a soft smile playing on her lips as she stirred the sauce. The recipe was complicated, but she was determined to get it right. However, as she reached for the oven mitts, a sudden distraction. Ethan's voice from the porch calling her name made her turn too quickly, and the timer was forgotten. Before long, the kitchen filled with thick, curling smoke. The rich scent of burnt cheese and sauce replaced the comforting aroma, and Olivia's heart sank. "Uh-oh," she muttered, frantically waving a towel to clear the smoke. Ethan rushed in, his eyes wide with a mix of surprise and amusement. "Is that supposed to be lasagna or a science experiment?" he teased, grinning as he took in the smoky kitchen. Olivia laughed, a little embarrassed but relieved by his lightheartedness. "You'll eat it anyway, right?" "With enough ketchup, anything's edible," Ethan said with a chuckle. They dissolved into laughter, the burnt dinner forgotten as they ordered pizza and settled beside the fire with blankets wrapped around them. The night was filled with warmth, love, and shared jokes. The perfect reminder that sometimes, imperfection made moments all the more memorable. Part 23. The Great Paint Fight. One bright Saturday morning, Olivia and Ethan set out to paint the bookshop's back room, eager to finish the space before the grand reopening. The sun filtered through the cherry tree branches, casting dappled shadows on the old building's faded siding. With brushes and rollers in hand, they began carefully painting the walls a soft, welcoming shade of cream. But the calm soon gave way to playful mischief. Olivia accidentally flicked a streak of bright blue paint across Ethan's cheek. "Oh, you're asking for it now," he warned, a mischievous sparkle in his eyes. Before long, paint was splattered everywhere: walls, floor, clothes, even faces. They chased each other through the room, laughter ringing out as their light-hearted battle turned the space into a vibrant, colorful mess. Exhausted and grinning, they collapsed in a heap on the floor, paint-streaked and breathless. Ethan reached over, wiping a dab of blue from Olivia's nose with a gentle smile. "The room looks great," he teased. "But you look better." "Flatterer," she giggled, leaning in to kiss him amid the joyful chaos. That day, the bookshop's walls were painted not just with color but with laughter and love, a foundation for every story yet to be told inside those doors. Part 24, Rainy Day Comfort. A sudden summer storm rolled over Cherry Creek, sending dark clouds tumbling across the sky and trapping Olivia and Ethan inside the cozy farmhouse. The rain hammered on the roof, filling the rooms with the soothing rhythm of nature's song. Rather than letting the storm dampen their spirits, they decided to make the most of the day. Together, they built a blanket fort in the living room, draping quilts and pillows over chairs and couches. Inside their snug hideaway, they read aloud from old novels by flashlight, the flickering light casting dancing shadows on the walls. "This is the best storm ever," Olivia whispered, curled against Ethan's warm chest, her head resting lightly on his shoulder. "Because of the fort or the company?" He teased softly, his fingers tracing slow patterns on her arm. "Both," she smiled sleepily, her eyes half closed in contentment. Thunder rumbled in the distance, but inside their cozy cocoon, the world outside faded away. In the warmth of their shared refuge, every drop of rain became a reminder that love could turn even the stormiest days into moments of peace and joy. Part 25, The First Fight. It started over something small. A disagreement about the bookshop's grand reopening. Olivia wanted a quiet event, intimate and simple, a reflection of the shop's humble charm. Ethan envisioned a big town gathering, full of music, laughter, and the lively spirit of Cherry Creek. "We agreed this was my project," Olivia said sharply, frustration tightening her voice as she folded her arms. "I just want to help," Ethan replied, the tension evident in his eyes. "You keep shutting me out. Because I need this to be mine." She snapped, the weight of months of stress and unresolved feelings spilling out. Silence fell heavy between them, the hurt and pride forming an invisible wall. Ethan grabbed his jacket, his jaw tight as he stepped toward the door. "I'm going for a walk," he said quietly, then slipped outside, leaving Olivia alone with her pounding heart and a silence that felt much louder than any argument. In that quiet moment, both understood how fragile love could be. How easily pride could build walls between even the closest hearts. Part 26, Reflections. Olivia sat quietly on the porch swing, her hands wrapped loosely around a mug of cooling tea. The evening breeze carried the scent of cherry blossoms and freshly cut grass, but her thoughts were heavy. Tears stung her eyes, blurring the soft hues of the fading sunset. "Why am I pushing him away?" she whispered to the empty field stretching beyond the garden. The pain in her chest was sharp, the ache of misunderstanding and pride creating a chasm between her and Ethan. She knew he wanted to be part of her dreams, to help build their future together, but fear and stubbornness had closed her off. Meanwhile, not far from the house, Ethan stood by the edge of Cherry Creek, tossing smooth stones across the water's surface. Each skip was a small rebellion against the silence that had grown between them. The cool water mirrored the darkening sky, reflecting his own tangled thoughts. "Idiot," he muttered under his breath, frustration cracking his voice. "You promised to listen, to understand." The quiet around him was filled with the rustle of leaves and the distant call of a night bird. As dusk settled over the land, both Olivia and Ethan found themselves alone with the same realization: pride and silence could never build a home. Only openness and forgiveness could bridge the distance that had crept between their hearts. In the fading light, their separate reflections seemed to whisper the same truth. This was not the end, but a chance to begin again. Part 27, Apologies. The next morning, Olivia found Ethan by the creek where the water moved gently over smooth stones, shimmering in the early sunlight. His figure was silhouetted against the soft glow of dawn, and as he turned, surprise softened into relief when he saw her approach. "I'm sorry," Olivia said softly, her voice trembling with the weight of her feelings. "I should have listened. You just want to be part of this. Part of us." Ethan's eyes softened, the tension in his shoulders easing. "And I'm sorry for pushing. This is your dream, I should have respected that." They stood close, the gentle rush of the creek a soothing soundtrack to their quiet reconciliation. For a long moment, no words were needed, only the shared understanding that their love was stronger than pride and fear. Olivia smiled gently, reaching up to brush a stray lock of hair from Ethan's face. "We make a good team, remember?" "Always," he murmured, pulling her into a warm embrace, the worries and distance melting away in the comfort of their closeness. As the sun rose higher, casting golden light over Cherry Creek, they knew they were ready to face whatever came next, together. Part 28, New Plans. Back in the cozy farmhouse kitchen, the soft hum of conversation and the scent of fresh coffee filled the air as Olivia and Ethan spread out their sketches and notes on the oak dining table. They were working on the reopening of the old bookshop in Cherry Creek. A dream Olivia had nurtured quietly for years, now blossoming under the warmth of Ethan's encouragement. "A little you, a little me," Olivia said, tapping a pencil against her sketchbook filled with delicate drawings of floral patterns and cozy reading nooks. Her eyes sparkled with excitement as she envisioned the gentle charm the shop could hold, a sanctuary of stories and calm for their small town. Ethan leaned in, smiling widely as he traced the lines of her drawings. The perfect mix. Something warm, inviting, but with a touch of fun. He kissed her temple softly, a silent promise that he was all in. Their earlier tension had dissolved into laughter, playful teasing, and a renewed sense of purpose. Together, they brainstormed events, a quiet book club for locals, storytelling afternoons for children, even a small art exhibit featuring Olivia's sketches inspired by Cherry Creek's landscapes. With each idea shared, the bond between them grew stronger, rooted in shared dreams and the sweetness of second chances. They worked late into the evening, light from the old chandelier casting a gentle glow over their plans, their hands occasionally brushing, each touch reminding them of the journey that had brought them here, back home, and back to each other. Part 29, A Simple Joy. One warm evening, the world seemed to slow just for them. Olivia and Ethan lay sprawled in the soft grass behind the farmhouse, a perfect patch of wildflowers and clover beneath a sky thick with stars. Fireflies flickered around them, casting tiny golden lights that danced like magic in the summer air. "What are you thinking about?" Ethan asked, his voice low and steady, his hand finding hers in the quiet darkness. Olivia sighed, turning her face up to the vast expanse above. "That this is everything I wanted but was too scared to admit before." Her voice was barely a whisper, but full of deep, honest feeling. Ethan squeezed her hand gently, the simple gesture carrying the weight of all the moments they had shared, the regrets, the hopes, and the slow, steady rekindling of love. "I knew you'd find your way here," he said softly, his eyes reflecting the starlight, steady and sure. Beneath the sprawling cherry trees that bordered the field, their love felt real and alive, steady, sure, and beautifully simple. No grand declarations, just the quiet certainty of two hearts finally at peace, woven into the fabric of the night. Part 30, Home, Together. The grand reopening of the bookshop was a gentle success, just as Olivia had hoped. The warm interior buzzed softly with the voices of neighbors chatting over cups of tea, children curled in cozy corners lost in their books, and the comforting scent of old paper and fresh pine filling the air. At day's end, as the sun dipped low and cast long shadows across Cherry Creek, Olivia locked the door behind the last customer and turned to Ethan with a tired, happy smile. "We did it. Together," she said, her voice full of quiet triumph. "Always," Ethan replied, wrapping his arm around her waist and pulling her close. They walked down the narrow, tree-lined street hand in hand, the world around them humming softly with the rhythm of home. The cherry trees above rustled in the gentle breeze, their petals whispering promises of growth and new beginnings. In that moment, the small town felt like theirs, a forever place where dreams were nurtured and love was steadfast, a place where they had both finally found their way home. Part 31, A New Chapter Begins. It was a crisp autumn morning when Olivia awoke feeling different, lighter, somehow, like the very air in the room had shifted. Golden sunlight filtered through the lace curtains, casting soft patterns on the walls painted a gentle cream. She blinked slowly, the quiet hum of the farmhouse around her soothing yet alive with possibility. "Ethan," she called softly, her voice still husky with sleep. He appeared in the doorway moments later, his hair tousled and his eyes bright with that familiar gentle warmth. "Everything okay?" he asked, stepping closer, sensing something in her tone. Olivia held up a small, white stick with two delicate pink lines. A smile spread across her face, radiant and full of wonder. "Looks like there's going to be 3 of us." For a heartbeat, Ethan froze, his mouth slightly open in awe. Then, a wide, joyful grin broke across his face as he rushed forward, lifting her into a gentle twirl that spun the quiet room into a whirl of laughter and light. "We're having a baby," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "We're having a baby," Olivia laughed, happy tears glistening in her eyes. In that moment, the farmhouse felt even warmer, filled with the promise of new life and the deepening of their love, a new chapter waiting to be written beneath the cherry trees that watched over their home. Part 32, Preparing for Baby. The following weeks were a whirlwind of excitement and gentle preparations. The farmhouse buzzed softly with the sound of paintbrushes brushing walls and the scent of fresh pine filling the air as Olivia and Ethan transformed the spare room into a nursery. Soft green walls replaced the plain cream, and tiny woodland decorations, foxes, owls, and delicate ferns, were carefully arranged on shelves. A crib sat nestled beneath the window, waiting patiently for the little life it would soon hold. "What if it's a girl?" Olivia mused one afternoon, holding up a tiny floral onesie with a thoughtful smile. Ethan chuckled, pulling her close. "Then she'll be as beautiful and stubborn as her mother." "And if it's a boy?" she asked with a playful glint in her eye. "Then I'll teach him how to fish in Cherry Creek and build forts out back." They laughed together, dreaming aloud of lullabies to be sung softly in the moonlight, bedtime stories woven from their shared past, and tiny footsteps padding down the hall in the quiet early mornings. The room felt ready, full of hope, a haven for the new life they were eagerly waiting to meet. Part 33, Cravings and Comfort. As Olivia's belly grew round and full, so did her cravings, sometimes surprising, always heartfelt. One chilly evening, the rain tapped softly against the windows, and she looked up at Ethan with a mischievous grin. "Could you run out for pickles and ice cream?" she asked, voice full of playful longing. He laughed, already grabbing his coat. "You'll spoil this baby, you know." Minutes later, he returned, soaked from the rain but smiling warmly, arms laden with her requested treats. "I love you," he said, pulling her close and pressing a kiss to her damp forehead. "You love it more," she teased, taking a big bite of pickles dipped in chocolate ice cream. He shook his head, chuckling softly. "Even when you eat pickles with chocolate." They spent the night curled together on the couch, baby books spread around them, the flicker of the fireplace casting a cozy glow over their laughter and whispered dreams. In those quiet moments, the farmhouse felt full of love, of anticipation, and the gentle comfort of a family growing. Part 34, A Scare in the Night. One late evening, as the farmhouse settled into deep quiet, Olivia was startled awake by a sharp pain that caught her breath and made her clutch the sheets. Ethan, immediately alert, was at her side in seconds, his face etched with concern. "The baby? Is something wrong?" he asked softly, taking her trembling hand in his. Olivia nodded weakly, fighting the sudden wave of panic. Her mind raced. Was this labor? Was the baby in danger? Quickly, Ethan grabbed his phone, calling their doctor. The calm voice on the other end reassured them. It was just Braxton Hicks' contractions. False labor, common but unsettling. Relief washed over Olivia in slow waves. She sank back against the pillows, exhausted but grateful. Ethan pulled a soft blanket over her, brushing damp hair from her forehead with tenderness. "False alarm," she whispered, voice still shaky. "I'm driving you to the hospital next time." Pajamas and all, Ethan joked gently, trying to lighten the moment. She smiled softly, leaning into him. "You're going to be a wonderful dad." He kissed her temple, eyes bright with promise. "And you're the strongest woman I know." Outside, the cherry trees swayed softly in the night breeze, their quiet beauty a steady reminder of the life soon to bloom within their home. Part 35, The Baby Shower. The bookshop blossomed with life as friends and neighbors gathered for a baby shower thrown by Lila, filling the air with laughter, music, and the warm scent of fresh flowers. The small space was decked with pastel ribbons and handmade decorations, creating an atmosphere of joy and celebration. Tables were lined with presents wrapped in soft paper, blankets, tiny clothes, toys, and even a miniature fishing rod from Ethan, a hopeful gift for future adventures. Diapers. "Lots of them," chuckled Mrs. Jensen, an elderly neighbor who had known Olivia since she was a child. Olivia smiled, feeling the warmth of community wrapping around her like a soft quilt. She unwrapped gifts carefully, each one a symbol of support, love, and shared hope. Ethan stood beside her, pride shining in his eyes. "For when they're ready," he said, gesturing toward the tiny rod. "We'll need a bigger porch swing," Olivia laughed, imagining the day when tiny footsteps would patter across the porch. Surrounded by friendship and love, the farmhouse and bookshop felt more like home than ever before, a place where old roots and new dreams grew together, steady and strong. Part 36, The First Real Fight, Again. As the due date crept closer, nerves frayed like the edges of worn fabric. One evening, a small disagreement about the bookshop's reopening plans spiraled into frustration. "Stop fussing, Ethan." "I'm fine," Olivia snapped, tension heavy in her voice. "I just want to help." "You're doing too much," Ethan countered, voice edged with concern. "I'm pregnant, not helpless," she shot back, cheeks flushed with frustration. The room thickened with silence, hurt and worry tangled in the air between them. Ethan sighed deeply, softening, and pulled her into a cautious embrace. "I'm scared, Liv," he murmured. "I don't want anything to happen to you or the baby." Her anger melted away, replaced by tenderness and understanding. "I know. I'm scared too." They held each other tightly, love quieting the storm within their hearts as the cherry blossoms outside swayed gently in the night breeze. Part 37, The Longest Night. The call came at midnight. The contractions were real this time. Ethan's calm voice was steady but urgent as he helped Olivia prepare for the journey to the hospital. Beneath a sky heavy with stars, Ethan gripped the wheel with one hand, the other never leaving Olivia's clammy fingers. "Breathe, baby. We've got this," he whispered softly, his voice a lifeline in the swirling night. Hours passed in a haze of pain and determination. Olivia's strength shone through, bolstered by Ethan's unwavering presence. He wiped sweat from her brow, whispered encouragements, and never left her side. "You're so strong," he murmured, brushing damp strands of hair from her face. "I love you." At dawn, a new cry broke through the quiet hospital room, a perfect, tiny boy with bright eyes and a strong spirit. Part 38, Meeting James Henry Caldwell. Tears filled Olivia's eyes as the nurse carefully laid their son on her chest, warmth radiating between them like the sun rising over Cherry Creek. "Hello, James Henry," she whispered, voice trembling with emotion. Ethan's eyes glistened as he leaned over, gently brushing a kiss onto his son's forehead. "Welcome to the world, little one." The soft hum of the hospital faded, replaced by the steady rhythm of new life and new love. A family bound together beneath the cherry trees that had watched over Olivia and Ethan's journey home. In that quiet moment, the past and future intertwined, a beautiful beginning written in the language of hope, love, and forever. Part 39, Coming Home. Back at the farmhouse, the nursery waited quietly, bathed in soft morning light filtering through lace curtains. The walls were painted a gentle cream with touches of pale green, echoing the woodland scenes Ethan and Olivia had chosen together. A small wooden crib stood by the window, adorned with handmade mobiles crafted from felt leaves and tiny birds, all swaying gently in the faint breeze. Ethan stepped carefully through the front door, cradling baby James with practiced tenderness. His eyes shone with a mixture of awe and tenderness as he smiled down at the little boy's peaceful face. "This is home, buddy," Ethan murmured softly, his voice full of promise and protection. Olivia followed behind, carrying a basket of fresh linens. She paused in the doorway, watching Ethan with a heart full of gratitude and wonder. When she finally approached, she reached out and gently set James in the crib, brushing a tear from her cheek as she whispered, "We made this life, Ethan. Together." Ethan wrapped his arms around her, pulling her close in a warm embrace. "And it's just the beginning," he whispered back, his breath warm against her hair. Outside, the cherry tree swayed in the soft breeze, its branches heavy with delicate pink blossoms, a quiet blessing on the next chapter of their story. Part 40, A Family Complete. Weeks passed in a blur of joyful exhaustion. Night after night, Olivia and Ethan took turns soothing their son's soft cries, rocking him gently in their arms. The rhythm of midnight feedings, lullabies whispered softly in the dark, and the tender press of tiny hands against skin became the new heartbeat of their days. One evening, as the sun dipped low and cast warm golden hues across the farmhouse porch, Olivia sat on the swing with James nestled in her arms, his small fingers curling softly around hers. The sky above was a deep, velvety blue sprinkled with stars. "I never imagined life like this," she said quietly, her voice full of wonder and awe. "So full. So good." Ethan sat beside her, brushing a stray lock of hair from her face before pressing a gentle kiss to her temple. "Neither did I," he replied, his voice thick with emotion. "But it's everything I ever wanted." Under the vast starlit sky, their little family rested in the quiet joy of forever, small, imperfect, but utterly complete. Part 41, A Bright Morning. Morning sunlight spilled warmly through the kitchen windows, casting golden rays across the worn wooden floor and illuminating the scattered toys that told stories of a growing boy's day. Ethan stood just inside the doorway, his eyes sparkling with pride as James took tentative steps toward him, arms outstretched for balance. Olivia watched from nearby, heart swelling with love and joy. "Come on, James," she encouraged softly, voice warm and tender. "You can do it, baby." Tears glistened in her eyes as she whispered, "Look at you, walking all by yourself." James wobbled, determined, and Ethan crouched down with arms wide open. When the boy stumbled just before reaching his father, Ethan caught him effortlessly, laughter bubbling up from both. Olivia smiled, her hand resting lightly on her belly, a quiet reminder that life continued to bloom and grow. The farmhouse was filled with the sounds of Ethan's deep chuckle, James's delighted squeals, and Olivia's soft words of encouragement. Later, on the porch swing beneath the cherry tree, Olivia and Ethan sat hand in hand, the world around them feeling bright, full, and infinite. "I never thought this could be so perfect," Olivia murmured. Ethan brushed a lock of hair from her face, eyes shimmering with contentment. "We have everything we need. It's everything." Outside, cherry branches swayed gently in the breeze, a quiet echo of their joy. Part 42, Unexpected News. The day had begun like any other, golden light spilling over rolling farm fields and birds singing cheerful melodies. Ethan kissed Olivia goodbye at the kitchen door, promising to be back before sunset after a quick trip to town for supplies. James toddled alongside, eyes wide with curiosity and wonder. Olivia smiled, already imagining the evening meal she'd prepare. The peace of the morning wrapped around her like a soft shawl, until the phone shattered the calm with a sharp ring. Her heart leapt as she answered, only to hear a hurried voice. "Is this Olivia Caldwell?" "This is Officer Harper from Cherry Creek. There's been an accident. Your husband was involved in a car crash on Maple Road. He's been taken to the hospital. Please come quickly." The world tilted beneath her feet. Trembling, she gathered James into her arms, whispering through tears, "Mommy needs to go away for a little while, but I'll be back soon." The drive to the hospital was a nightmare in slow motion, every red light a cruel pause, every second stretching endlessly. When she arrived, a nurse led her to a waiting room filled with silent, serious faces. Olivia clung to James, her mind spinning in a storm of fear, love, and desperate hope as she whispered prayers for Ethan's safety. Part 43, The Hospital Vigil. The hospital waiting room's harsh fluorescent lights cast a cold, sterile glow over Olivia as she sat holding sleeping James. The hum of distant machines, the soft murmur of nurses and doctors moving through the halls, everything felt surreal, so far from the warm farmhouse and cherry blossoms waiting outside. Minutes dragged into hours, time fractured and disjointed. Olivia's fingers traced gentle circles on James's soft cheek, her eyes fixed on the closed door behind which Ethan fought for his life. Memories flooded her, Ethan's laughter, their whispered plans, the comfort of his steady presence. How could everything change so fast? A nurse approached with a cup of lukewarm coffee and a kind smile, but Olivia barely tasted it. Her mind was trapped on the door behind which her husband lay vulnerable and unknown. Friends and neighbors gathered quietly in the hospital chapel, candles flickering, prayers rising. Lila had called softly earlier, but Olivia was too stunned, too afraid to face a world without Ethan. When a doctor finally emerged, his heavy expression crushed her heart. "We've done everything we can," he said gently. "Ethan is stable, but the next 24 hours will be critical." Olivia nodded, swallowing her fear, and held James close, whispering promises of hope and love into the long, dark night. Part 44, Waiting. The waiting room grew quieter as night deepened and shadows lengthened across the floor. Olivia clutched James to her chest, his soft breathing a fragile comfort in the sterile stillness. Outside, rain began tapping softly against the windows, a gentle rhythm against her pounding heart. Her gaze remained fixed on the closed ICU door. Time had lost meaning. Every footstep echoed like thunder in her ears. Memories of Ethan's easy smile, his warm touch, the strength of his love filled her mind. Tears threatened, but she blinked them away for James's sake. His small fingers curled around hers, grounding her in a fractured world. Suddenly, the phone rang sharply, breaking the silence. A nurse appeared, gently calling her to a small consultation room. The doctor's words were soft but devastating. Ethan did not survive the surgery. His injuries were too severe. Olivia's world shattered. Knees buckling, she sank into the chair, tears flowing freely. But beneath the grief was a fierce, determined love for James, a promise she would keep alive for them both. Part 45, Shattered. Alone in the small, sterile room, Olivia sat stunned, her heart splintered into countless pieces. Ethan was gone, her anchor, her joy, her home. Only memories remained, his laughter, his touch, his unwavering love. Tears fell freely as she clung to James, the small boy who carried both their hearts in his tiny hands. The farmhouse felt impossibly vast and empty, but inside her, a spark remained. For James, for the future, she would find strength. As dawn broke, Olivia rocked James gently, singing the lullabies Ethan once hummed. The pain was unbearable, but beneath it burned a fierce determination. "I don't know how to do this without him," she whispered, voice cracked and fragile. "But I will try. For you. For us." Outside, the cherry tree swayed quietly in the morning breeze, a silent witness to a family forever changed, yet still unbroken. Part 46, Small Steps. The days after Ethan's passing rolled by in a blur of quiet routines and aching silences. The farmhouse, once alive with his laughter and warmth, now felt impossibly vast and hollow. Olivia moved like a shadow through its rooms, clutching James close as if he were the last piece of her shattered heart. Mornings were the hardest. She woke with a hollow ache in her chest, the empty space beside her a painful reminder. Yet, when James's bright eyes found hers and his small hands grasped hers with unwavering trust, a fragile spark of strength flickered to life within her. She found herself in the kitchen, preparing meals not just for herself but for the boy who needed her more than ever. She sang softly while washing dishes, telling James stories about his father, brave, kind, and full of love. Occasionally, she caught herself smiling, remembering Ethan's playful grin, the way he teased her when she accidentally burned dinner, or how he'd hold her hand through every storm. One warm afternoon, Olivia sat on the porch swing beneath the cherry tree, rocking James gently. His tiny fingers curled around hers, grounding her to the present. "We're going to take this one day at a time, baby," she whispered, her voice trembling but resolute. "I don't know the whole way yet, but I promise you I'll keep walking." Tears fell softly down her cheeks as the breeze rustled through the cherry blossoms, carrying the memory of Ethan's embrace and the promise of new beginnings. Neighbors and friends visited often, bringing casseroles and offering quiet hugs. Lila was a constant presence, steady, patient, and kind. She helped with chores, sat with Olivia in silence, and listened without judgment. Slowly, piece by fragile piece, Olivia began to mend her broken heart. Not because the pain disappeared, but because love, her love for James, her love for Ethan, gave her a reason to keep moving forward. Part 47, Support. Life's rhythm shifted slowly but surely as Olivia began to feel the gentle warmth of community support. The raw grief that had threatened to swallow her whole softened beneath the steady care of those who refused to let her fall. One bright morning, Lila arrived at the farmhouse doorstep, arms overflowing with homemade bread and freshly picked wildflowers. Her smile was a balm to Olivia's weary soul. "I brought a little something for you and James," she said softly, setting the basket on the kitchen table. "You don't have to do this alone." Olivia blinked back tears, nodding gratefully. "Thank you. Sometimes it feels like the world is too big without him." Lila reached out, squeezing her hand gently. "But you're not alone. We're all here, your family, your friends." Over the following weeks, neighbors stopped by with casseroles, invitations to tea, and offers to babysit. Small acts of kindness piled up, weaving an invisible safety net around Olivia and James. One afternoon, Olivia found herself again on the porch swing, James asleep in her lap as she gazed up at the cherry tree's branches swaying softly in the breeze. Ethan's voice echoed in her heart, steady, reassuring, a whisper from the past that comforted her present. That night, as she read to James from an old storybook, a smile crept through her tears. "We'll be okay," she whispered. "Together." The road ahead was uncertain, but with friends like Lila and the memory of Ethan's love, hope began to bloom again from the deepest sorrow. Part 48, A New Light. Spring arrived quietly, and with it came a gentle renewal. The farmhouse seemed to awaken alongside Olivia's heart. Outside, the cherry tree burst into bloom, its branches heavy with soft pink flowers that danced in the warm breeze like whispers of hope. One peaceful evening, Olivia sat on the porch swing cradling James. His tiny fingers curled tightly around hers as they watched the first fireflies flicker in the twilight. A gentle breeze stirred the air, carrying the scent of wildflowers and something else, a quiet peace settling deep within her. "Look at you, chasing fireflies already," Olivia whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. She brushed a stray lock of hair from James's forehead, smiling through tears. "Your daddy would be so proud." Ethan's memory was everywhere, in the creak of the porch swing, the warmth of the afternoon sun, the steady beat of her son's heart. Though the weight of grief remained, it no longer crushed her spirit. Instead, it transformed into a gentle light, guiding her forward with quiet strength. That night, as James slept soundly beside her, Olivia. Part 50, Acceptance and Hope. Night settled gently over Cherry Creek, wrapping the farmhouse in a soft cloak of stars and silence. Olivia rocked slowly on the porch swing, cradling James in her arms. His steady breathing was a soothing rhythm amid the vast quiet around her. For a long moment, she simply watched the sky, vast, endless, and full of unknown tomorrows. A tear slipped down her cheek, warm and tender. The ache of losing Ethan still lived inside her, raw and unyielding. Yet beneath that pain was something new, a fragile, unwavering hope. She whispered softly, voice barely above a breath, "We'll be okay, my love. We have each other. And I'll carry you both with me, always." James stirred, opening his eyes to offer a sleepy smile. Olivia returned it, her heart swelling with a love deeper than she'd ever known. The cherry tree swayed gently in the breeze, its blossoms shimmering like silver threads against the night sky, a symbol of endurance, grace, and quiet strength. Olivia knew the road ahead would not be easy. There would be days of sorrow and loneliness, moments when grief threatened to overwhelm her. But she also knew this: love endures beyond loss. It weaves through the cracks of broken hearts, knitting together hope, resilience, and new beginnings. With James in her arms and Ethan in her heart, Olivia was ready to face whatever came next. Together, they would write the next chapter of their story, one filled with love, courage, and the unbreakable bond of family.